Your next phase of growth is closer than you think. Eisner Amper, an accounting, advisory, and outsourcing firm, sees your transformation as our purpose. Whether you're streamlining processes, empowering productivity, or navigating strategic growth, we help you prepare for today so that you can thrive tomorrow. Eisner Amper, ready, set, grow.
I'm Kim Singletary, and you're listening to Biz Talks, a weekly conversation with local business leaders about topics affecting New Orleans and Southeast Louisiana. Hello, and welcome to this week's episode of Biz Talks. I'm Kim Singletary, and we are coming to you on video for the first time. So yay! Today we're going to talk about a big topic in the news right now, actually huge news for Louisiana. If you happen to have somehow missed it, one of the largest data centers ever to be built anywhere is coming to Louisiana. Talks on the project began back in 2024, and at that time it was a $10 billion deal. It has grown a lot since then. On July 13th, Meta announced it was committing more than $50 billion to its Richland Parish data center project. That expands the campus to nearly 10 million square feet. The project, called Hyperion, I'm maybe saying that right, maybe saying it wrong, will be the largest in Meta's global fleet and the largest development in Louisiana history. It has been touted by state officials and Entergy as a huge win for the state, supporting 7,500 construction jobs over its 4-year construction and approximately 1,000 operational jobs and tens of millions of dollars in tax revenue. Just recently, a few days ago, on July 27th, a New York Times article came out called "How Meta Got Everything It Wanted in a Secret Louisiana Data Center Deal." That obviously has gotten a lot of attention. Part of the article talked about how the deal was rushed through in secrecy, involving over 50 government officials signing NDAs, and then mentioned tax breaks being offered to Meta worth as much as $10 billion. To get a bit more insight about the potential costs of this data center and what that means for our state, I'm talking today with Jackson Voss. He is the Senior Government Affairs and Policy Advisor for the Alliance for Affordable Energy. Welcome, Jackson.
Thank you for having me.
I'm excited to have you. So I want you first to explain, what is the Alliance for Affordable Energy and what do you do there?
Sure. The Alliance for Affordable Energy, we are a nonprofit consumer advocacy organization based in New Orleans, Louisiana. We've been around for 40 years. We were founded to help make the effort to bring back regulatory power to the city of New Orleans, and we also work at the Public Service Commission. So a lot of our work focuses on ensuring that our utilities are not exceeding what people can afford, trying to make our system a little bit more affordable, more sustainable, and generally work better for consumers rather than just for big industry in particular, but also for the for-profit utilities who make money based on what we pay each month.
So what does your team look like, and where are you based out of?
Most of us are based in New Orleans. A few of us are elsewhere in the state, and many of us come from all over the place. Some of my colleagues are from Lake Charles and so on. Most of us are based in New Orleans, though, and our office is based in New Orleans. I believe 12 people on staff right now. So we're a relatively small organization, but we focus mainly on these ratepayer issues at the Public Service Commission and the New Orleans City Council.
So this is obviously big when it comes to energy and energy costs. I'm assuming you've read the New York Times article. What were your thoughts on that?
I think it was, I'm glad that a lot of people are talking about it. I'm glad that people are seeing it. I will say it was not news to us. A lot of this has been either somewhat well known. I think the reporting did uncover a few things, did reveal a few things that we weren't aware of, including the process of how NDAs were distributed around state government, and how people were sort of ushered into this process. But I think that this has been on the Alliance's radar from fairly early on. We started to hear murmurs about a big data center project in 2024. At the state legislature, we actually showed up and testified. I actually showed up and testified on this sales tax exemption bill they described it in this article as being hijacked and changed from being a bill that would help support rural broadband and transitioning it into a massive sales tax exemption program that now exists for these data centers and is being used by Meta right now for this Hyperion data center. And so I think this is something that's been on our radar since then, and I think that it is especially with everything that's happening the Public Service Commission around the approval of all these gas plants. There's been three that were approved last year, and there's seven more being considered this year. The Alliance has been very busy with this Hyperion data center, and I think that we're glad to see the coverage.
So let's talk a little bit about these gas plants because not everybody might know about those things. So,
Mhm.
so what is being going on?
Right. So these hyperscale or AI data centers require enormous amounts of electricity to function, partly because they are huge facilities with lots of computer stacks that are running 24/7, 365. So I think that's an important part of this to keep in mind is that these are facilities that are intended to be on and consuming electricity for as long as possible in order to provide the actual computing services necessary to power the AI products that Meta is talking about using.
So
And so these require lots of electricity.
I saw something on the scale and it said that it would use more than the city of New Orleans uses for energy.
About seven times more. So seven cities of New Orleans worth of electricity on a hot summer day.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, yeah. So we're talking about an enormous amount of electricity being built just for this one facility. And really, these power plants are being built for this one facility. I
Okay.
think a big part of our concern here, and I think the New York Times did a good job of saying this, is that the costs that are being covered by Meta, I think that the governor, the Public Service Commission, Meta, Entergy, and the president have all made a point of saying the data centers are going to pay for themselves. I think if you look at the details of what we do know, and then also if you keep in mind what we don't know about these deals because of the NDAs, because of confidentiality, uh, the truth is that, and I think the New York Times did well in saying this, an enormous amount of risk falls on ratepayers if this deal does not fall through or is not seen through completion. Additionally, even if it is, even if everything's fulfilled the way that everybody hopes, the deals that exist between Meta and Energy are only for a certain amount of time. The new power plants that are going to be built have lifespans about 30 to 45 years. The deal between Meta and Entergy, the first one for the first three gas plants, is only 15 years. The next deal for the next seven power plants is only 20, which means we have between 25 and 30 years of lifespan left on these gas plants where we have to figure out who's going to be paying for it. I think there was news today in the Wall Street Journal that said that Meta's already beginning to think about scaling back investment in AI, or may have to because of its investors. Uh, we have lots of questions about whether or not this deal is as secure as some of its proponents want us to believe it is.
So I know in the New York Times article, they were talking about how they're the proponents of this project are saying that if Meta were to pull back for any reasons, there are serious penalties involved with that, and there is like a plan B where someone else picks up the tab. Is that something that you guys agree with or have heard about?
We have heard it. I think we don't think that there's any guarantees that those things are true. And I think that it's impossible for us to know without having access to the full scope of what's being decided between Entergy and Meta. I think we actually are in the process right now. Are in the process with an administrative law judge of trying to figure out whether or not these job guarantees involved with the Meta deal are real and how enforceable they are. There are lots of questions about what is being promised in press releases versus what is actually going to be guaranteed as protections for ratepayers and for other customers. And actually, to be clear, I think this is a concern that's not just from us as residential ratepayer consumer advocates. This is something that most industry in Louisiana is also concerned about. So I think the large energy users group, which represents companies like Shell, ExxonMobil, other big industrial customers in Louisiana, also share these concerns in part because this is an unprecedented build out of huge infrastructure for one customer that might fall on every customer, whether it's you or me paying our electric bills to Entergy Louisiana or ExxonMobil paying their bills. So I think there's a large array of stakeholders who are all very concerned about how this deal is structured and how much is shrouded in secrecy and how much we don't know.
And I know that the pushback from the administration has been like, we have needed to move quickly. We have needed to push this because this is we're working at kind of the speed of tech
Mhm.
and we're trying to get this. So what I guess I'm guessing that the view then is yes, but what we're giving up in transparency, in data, in
Mhm.
information, we're maybe moving too fast.
I think that's right. And I think that we're moving especially fast for a project where if for instance, things don't work out. And I think that's reporting from the Wall Street Journal about Meta, I find personally very concerning, which is that, and we've seen this before actually. So Meta, you may remember, announced its investment in the metaverse, like the VR capabilities that they were going to try to add as sort of a replacement for Zoom or for other video conferencing, where it would be sort of a VR headset kind of system where people could have virtual workplaces. And they invested about $80 billion into the metaverse over about 5 years, and then they stopped, right? I think that the other part of moving fast is the idea that if, and I think this is, the New York Times covered this well too, Meta has done everything in its power to ensure that if whatever risk it bears is going to be carried by somebody else,
Mhm.
whether it's the investors that are loaning it debt or the shell companies that's setting up to construct the actual facility, or, and I think this is the most important part for these gas plants, the backdrop for that is the other customers of Entergy Louisiana. And so I think the thing that is providing the security for this investment to be made, and the New York Times even notes that they are not even fully able to insure the actual data center building because of risks to storms and floods.
Yes.
All the risk is being borne by other parties, not Meta. And we don't actually know how secure the agreements are between Meta and everybody else in terms of mitigating those risks for the other customers. And in fact, we suspect that the risks to ratepayers remain considerable, even if those guarantees that are being claimed in PR press releases are real. So there's a big risk that people will pay a lot more for these investments being made for Meta than is being shared right now.
Is there any idea of what that would look like? Like, are we talking about minimal, uh, uh, minimal increases to your bill? Are we talking about like doubling your bill? Like, is there any idea of what that would even look like
We're
if
not
those
entirely sure. I think part of it is that this process that they're using right now to approve these plants, this is very unusual in Louisiana to approve three gas-fired power plants, let alone 10, in such a quick time period, right? I think that the risks here include rate increases to pay for the infrastructure. So I think if, for instance, Meta's only paying for a portion of the lifespan, so even if they're paying for 15 years of these power plants, and we have to pay for the other 30 if Meta drops out, that's going to mean monthly rate increases. You're also going to see increases in the cost of fuel. Obviously, gas, we're seeing right now the price of oil and gas go up for various things because of the war in Iran and other things that are happening globally. The more gas plants you have, that means natural gas becomes a scarcer resource, and especially when you're competing with LNG exports, with global demand. Gas is now something that's more volatile cost-wise. We have to pay for the fuel. We have to pay for fuel that's not used in Louisiana. There's actually utilities are able to secure their investment in purchasing fuel by charging their customers for any fuel they don't spend. That's also something to keep in mind. So if they buy too much gas, don't use all of it, we still have to pay for it on our monthly bills. Um, so you have the cost of the actual infrastructure that go in your monthly bill, the cost of gas, and then also I think another thing, a big part of the driver for cost in Louisiana right now has been storm damages. The more infrastructure you build, the more you have to pay for upkeep, the more you also are exposed to storm risks. So all that to say, there are lots of parts of this as it's built out with 10 new gas plants that could come back to the customers of Louisiana if they're not properly protected in this deal.
So I found it interesting that because I don't think this was mentioned in the New York Times article, that you were talking about the other concerns from other industry, including oil and gas, which has
Mhm.
been, our big source here. So what are you hearing from them, and are they making any moves? Are they trying to get answers? Like, what's happening on that end?
Yeah, so I think they're actually also interveners in this process in the same way the alliances and several other stakeholders. I think Walmart's another one. So Walmart's also a big customer for these utilities, and they often engage in these processes. I think they're expressing similar sentiments to us, even if they are maybe not doing it in the New York Times and in other and more prominent places, right? I think they also share this concern that their members, the people that they represent, are going to be forced to pay for all this infrastructure if Meta backs out, or if even if Meta doesn't back out, that there's costs that are not being shared, or at least not fully accounted for, that are going to fall back on them eventually. And I think that's true. I think that it's obviously it's different. I think ExxonMobil can probably afford a higher electric bill than relative to many families in Louisiana can, but it still raises everybody's costs at the end of the day when these things happen. Um, so all that to say, it may sound unusual for consumer advocates and big industry to be on the same side of this one for the same reasons, but it is what's happening.
So you guys just had an event. We are recording this in advance, but so
Uh-huh.
it would have been yesterday. Uh,
Sure.
so tell me about what you guys are doing, because I always love to hear. We the problems are never the news, right? It's always like who's doing what about it. So what are you guys doing to kind of fight back against some of this, to maybe get some more transparency? What are some of the things that are happening on that end?
Yeah, so we're having a press briefing. We're calling it the Metapocalypse press briefing, I think, is how we've been referring to it. Because I do think that I think that people need to understand this is a sort of a decision that once it's made, and I think for everybody to be clear, three gas plants were approved last year. They're considering seven more. That decision is supposed to be made at the Public Service Commission's meeting in December. That vote still hasn't taken place yet. So the seven gas plants, that is going to be like the whole ball game at this point. There probably is a world in which you can justify building some more gas plants, right? Economically, in terms of what's best for ratepayers writ large. 10 new gas plants is a lot of very expensive infrastructure, especially right now. There are cheaper ways to provide this power, but that is not something that's being considered in this docket by the Public Service Commission, in part because they are using a highly expedited process that they've called the Lightning Directive. This is based in part on the Lightning Initiative executive order issued by Governor Landry in order to speed these things up. That process is expedited in part by eliminating the need to do competitive price comparisons, making sure that the investment and the kinds of power generation actually make the most economic sense, and ensuring that it's the best deal for all of the other customers involved in this process who might be impacted by adding these things for Meta. So, for instance, we're not considering whether or not it would be cheaper to use solar or wind or some other source of energy. We're talking about Northeast Louisiana. That's actually one part of the state that's really well suited towards, believe it or not, geothermal energy, right? So you can actually dig into the ground and tap into hot rocks that allow you to produce steam and produce electricity that way. We're not talking about those investments, though, for the most part, when it comes to Meta right now. We're really talking about powering most of it using natural gas. That's probably not in the best interest of ratepayers, but this process that we're using right now that's going to be used to decide this in less than a year, and actually in the next few months, doesn't even have to take into account whether or not it makes the most economic sense to do this.
Okay, so that's you're talking about a short timeline. Is it what you guys are doing now? Is it really focused on getting the word out, getting people, especially big industries and stuff, to support this in order to push back?
Our hope, our hope is that the Public Service Commission would not vote to approve this until they've done their due diligence. We would like for them to delay a final decision on this process, make sure that they're doing everything they can to ensure this is the best deal possible for everyone, not just for Meta and Entergy. And that requires more time and to use the traditional process at least, or some version of it. I think that, and actually, I think this is another concern for industry is, for instance, when ExxonMobil needs more electricity, they don't get an expedited process. Neither do residential ratepayers. Meta is the only one getting this treatment right now. And if this is the new precedent that's set for these data centers, that'll basically be its own class of customer that's being given special treatment where they don't have to take into consideration whether or not what they're asking for is going to negatively impact the rest of us. And we don't think that that's right. We don't think that's fair. We also think it could be very costly for the people of Louisiana.
So if people are interested in this and they want to learn more and they want to know more about what you guys are doing, how should they do that?
Please go to our website, all for the number four energy.org. We have a newsletter. We try to keep people updated. We're trying to help people get more involved in this process. We'd strongly encourage you, if you're concerned about these things, to reach out to your public service commissioner. Right now, we are aware of how much of an uphill climb this is. The last time this vote came up, it was passed 4-1. We would really like to see that change. It's going to be difficult, but I think that if people make commissioners aware about how concerned they are about the potentials here, the potential costs here, that they still have an opportunity to do the right thing here, and that's what we're really trying to do. So it's going to move quickly. It's going to be something that's going to be it's complicated stuff. But the Alliance is trying to make sure people understand what their rights are, how the commission works, how this process works, and to get involved in it in whatever way they can.
And I mean, this is obviously an enormous project, but there is another data center that's already in kind of planning mode too,
Mhm.
from Amazon.
Correct. So there's a data center proposed for Amazon, I believe, in Shreveport area. There's also another data center proposed in Boyce, which is near Alexandria. And there's also the HUD 8 data center proposal in West Feliciana. So we have four or so data center projects that have been proposed. And actually, that Shreveport one, I believe, is a campus of maybe three separate centers, buildings, really. Um, but all that to say, this is starting to grow. I imagine that those proposals will come before the commission sometime in the near future. Um, we're very concerned that the process that's being used for Meta is going to become the permanent process. And if it means approving a lot of new gas-fired generation that's going to be more costly to consumers than what we have right now, we think that that's not an acceptable status quo.
All right. Well, so I want to end on something a little bit more fun. We're starting to, we want people, because we're mostly talking to people from this region, we want people to get a chance to get to know you a little bit. So I have a few fun questions for the end here. First, how do you stay organized? Are you a digital dude or are you paper calendar?
Digital. I'm extensively calendaring, but always digitally.
All right, a book, a movie, a show, or a podcast that you're loving right now?
Yeah, I just saw the Odyssey. I liked it a lot. I think I've been consumed with the discourse around it. So I've been reading lots of stuff about people who hate it and people who loved it, and it's been very interesting. Was a big fan of Greek mythology as a kid, so it's been fun for me.
That is definitely a big one right
Yeah.
now. Your favorite productivity hack?
Oh man, it's a great question. Uh, I think that I'd probably just need to start tying myself down to my desk, but I think sleep is probably the best productivity hack. We should probably all sleep some more.
That's absolutely true.
Yeah.
If you weren't doing what you do now, what would you be doing?
Oh man, that's a great question. I think if I wasn't doing consumer advocacy stuff or governmental affairs stuff, I probably would, if I could do anything else, I would perfect my gumbo recipe and open a gumbo shop.
Oh, that's a very Louisiana answer. I like
Yeah.
that. Restaurant that you love for a work lunch?
Ooh, okay, another good one. Um, we actually just did happy hour at Val's the other day, and that was really great. I do love Val's on Ferret.
Brett.
Great $6 margaritas, good salsas and things like that. Um, But I'll say I had brunch for the first time at Mondays the other day, and that was great too. So
Ooh,
would recommend. Yeah,
ooh, yeah, yeah. Val's right by the new Trader Joe's.
that's right. Yeah,
But it's warm out. Val's is a lot outdoor, isn't it?
it is. We got lucky. We got inside, so that was good.
All right. Okay, and then last question. If you were given your own talk show, who would be your first guest?
Oh man, right now I might want to talk directly to Philip May from Entergy right now. If I could, I have some questions I would like to ask. But yeah, I'd like to talk to going back to the Odyssey question. I would love to talk to Chris Nolan about what he tried to do with the Odyssey. I think that'd be kind of fun too.
So two very different
Yeah,
conversations.
yeah, two very different conversations. I don't think I'd be too mean to Philip May. I just have some questions. That's all.
I think that I'm getting that as like a general consensus here is that we just want more information,
I think that's right.
know more what's going on. So I know all about that as a journalist. That's all we want all the time. So
Uh-huh.
thank you so much. Thank you for taking the time to explain some of your concerns on that end. And again, it's Alliance for Affordable Energy. This is Jackson Voss working here in our community to try and get us all good rates on our energy, which we appreciate. So thank you
Absolutely.
so much. I really appreciate your time. And thank you, everybody, for listening.
Biz Talks is brought to you by Biz New Orleans Magazine. Follow us on social media at Biz New Orleans and visit bizneworleans.com for daily news and stories.